Welcome to SCOE Teacher Induction's overview of CSTP4, Planning Instruction and Designing Learning Experiences for All Students. The primary foundation of teacher induction is to support each participant's growth toward mastery of the 6 CSTP. You have chosen to focus on CSTP4, and today's presentation will provide an overview of the standard and its 5 elements. The purpose for today's session is to deepen your understanding of CSTP4 and to increase awareness of your own teaching practice within it. Following this activity, you will work with your mentor to identify evidence from your own practice and consider where that evidence places you along the continuum of development. Our primary tool for self-reflection and self-assessment in the program, the Continuum of Teaching Practice, recognizes that teachers just out of their preliminary program will likely begin their first year within the emerging level. This is appropriate and does not represent a deficit, but rather a starting place for your professional journey. We invite you to embrace your current placement on the continuum and to actively seek to work toward meaningful next steps within your professional growth journey. As teachers gain experience, they will show growth within the CSTP and deepen their practice and understanding of the standard and the depth of each element. If you are joining us with multiple years of teaching experience, you will also find the Continuum of Teaching Practice a useful tool to measure your current practice. The Continuum is meant to serve as a self-assessment tool for the life of the teacher's professional journey.
Standard 4 of the California Standards for the Teaching Profession guides teachers in planning instruction and designing learning experiences for all students. The first element of CSTP4 focuses on using knowledge of students' academic readiness, language proficiency, cultural background, and individual development to plan instruction. Teachers plan daily lessons using available curriculum and information from district and state required assessments. They are aware of the impact bias has on student learning. As they become more experienced, teachers plan lessons using additional information about student academic readiness, language, cultural background, and individual development. They are increasingly aware of potential bias and seek to learn about culturally responsive pedagogy. As their experience broadens, teachers plan differentiated instruction based on their knowledge of students' academic readiness, cultural background, and individual cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development. They consider potential sources of bias and stereotyping when planning lessons and incorporate responsive pedagogy into their instruction. CSTP Element 4.2 focuses on establishing and articulating goals for student learning. Early in their careers, teachers establish measurable and obtainable goals based on content standards and available curriculum guidelines. As they gain experience, teachers establish and share measurable and obtainable goals with students in lessons based on content standards and curriculum. As teachers extend their knowledge, they establish and communicate goals that are clear, measurable, accessible, challenging, and differentiated to address students' learning needs. These goals include special education goals as articulated in the Infant Family Service Plan, or IFSP, for students under the age of 3, or within the Individual Education Plan, or IEP goals for students in preschool through age 22. CSTP Element 4.3 focuses on developing and sequencing long-term and short-term instructional plans to support student learning. Teachers use available curriculum guidelines for planning daily, short, and long-term plans. They use IFSP IEP goals and objectives to develop short and long-term plans within the designated least restrictive environment. As teachers develop, they plan curriculum units that include a series of connected lessons and are linked to long-term planning to support learning. As teachers continue to enrich their instructional practice, they establish short and long-term curriculum plans to teach concepts and related academic language using instructional strategies that support student learning, mastery, and generalization. Their planning continues to incorporate the service delivery model within the designated least restrictive environment as designated on the IFSP IEP. Take a moment to consider these 3 key phrases gleaned from the first 3 elements of CSTP4. In the next slide, you will pause to reflect about these 3 elements and your current practice. Please review the prompt, reflect upon it, and discuss with your mentor. Once you've had time to reflect, restart the video and review the final 3 elements of CSTP4. CSTP Element 4.4 focuses on planning instruction that incorporates appropriate strategies to meet the learning needs of all students. Teachers plan instruction incorporating strategies suggested by curriculum guidelines. They are aware of students' assessed needs through data provided by the site or district, and they implement strategies as outlined in IFSP or IEP documents for identified students. Teachers expand their instructional planning practices by selecting strategies that respond to students' diverse learning needs. They seek additional information about students' learning and language needs, and they explore additional strategies to support students with special needs. As teachers extend and deepen their instructional planning skills, they incorporate strategies that address culturally responsive pedagogy and students' diverse language and learning needs. They also use assessment information to plan differentiated instruction and utilize effective strategies to ensure access for special needs students. CSTP Element 4.5 focuses on adapting instructional plans and curricular materials to meet the assessed needs of all students. In the early years, teachers implement lessons and use materials from the curriculum provided. As teachers gain experience and have additional opportunities to consider evidence of student progress, they begin to adapt plans and materials to address students' learning needs. As they refine their instructional practice, teachers make adjustments and adaptations to differentiate instructional plans as they include culturally responsive pedagogy and additional strategies to meet students' diverse needs. Take a moment to consider these 3 key phrases gleaned from the final 2 elements of CSTP4. In the next slide, you'll pause to reflect about these 2 elements and your current practice. Please pause the video, review the prompt, reflect upon it, then discuss with your mentor. Once you've had time to reflect, restart the video and review the final slide. Please take a moment to consider these 2 quotes and what they mean within your own teaching practice and CSTP4.
Thank you for your time today as we reviewed CSTP4, Planning Instruction and Designing Learning Experiences for All Students. Now that you have a deeper understanding of the depth and richness of CSTP4 and its elements, you will work with your mentor to review your current practice within CSTP4 using the continuum of teaching practice. This deep dive into the standard will support you in determining the most appropriate next steps in your own professional growth journey.